Hey kids, welcome to the Kapitol Life. I am your host, Abby Pagood. This is where we talk about all the things that life brings, the good, the bad, and of course, the healthy. And today's episode is called Mental Floss. That's what I think of when I think of mental floss. And we have an awesome episode of Keeping It Real with Real People, as we have a very good special friend of mine, Marguerite Kujawa.
Very good,
Say
very
it
good.
again.
Kujawa.
Kujawa.
Yes.
Kujawa. I feel like it's almost like a meditation, like Zen moment of your name is like Kujawa.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It is a little bit. It's like
Namaste.
Kujawa. Yes, thank you. Namaste, Kujawa. And I have to break it down because when I see it, I see Tujaya.
Yeah.
And it becomes African.
Jawa.
Yeah, it like becomes African or something to me. And I
Yeah.
don't, and then I'm like, okay, is that a tribe? Like I
Yeah.
don't know. Where does this hail from?
Poland, Polish roots.
Fantastic. See, no wonder we get along because ever since the day my child was born, Polish people love my daughter. Like,
Aw.
like it was the craziest thing. We had really good friends of ours that we've known for years, and like they just like I've known them through work and different things, but never like personally. But then as soon as she
Mm-hmm.
was born, it was like all the Polish people just flocked to my daughter, and like and they just always kind of was there nurturing her through the beginning of her first 3 years. It was kind of crazy. And I was like, what is this? She has this vibe where she attracts Polish people. I don't know what it is, but I
That's
think
so
it's very cool.
interesting.
I thought it was
I'm
very
like, I must
cool.
meet her.
I know you're gonna have to. You have to. So, but anyway, okay. So Margaret, like you are freaking an amazing woman. You do all kinds of things. If anybody even watches you on social media, you are just always putting yourself out there, always working on that better mindset to get people focused and realizing just their wealth consciousness. You're really focused on wealth mindset and wealth mindset as in focusing on self-worth, identity, doing all that stuff. So why not have you on Mental Floss Day? Like
I love that. Thank you, by the way.
So tell everybody a little bit about you because you have your company is called MK and Co, which is a little bit easier to say than Kujawa.
You got it. You're saying it like perfectly. I guess
It's so
that's just
funny.
the way you're gonna have to say it.
I think it's going to be a tone. It's going to be like a
Yes.
theme. Like my cousin, he got a cat and his name's Sake. And like in order for me to say it's not Saki, it's Sake. And so like in order to say it, I have to go Sake, like in order to get the inflection.
You like to do just
I like to feel into my vibes, man. I love to
yes.
feel into my vibes.
Yes.
This is how I roll. But tell everybody a little bit about you and your wealth conscious mindset, like coaching, like just a little bit of how you do as a professional.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, my business really, like you're saying, focuses on wealth consciousness. And what I do is I work with women that are at a point in their life where they're ready to transition out of their 9 to 5, out of a job. And we work together cohesively to create that strategy, that plan as they exit. And then they step into their soul-led purpose. A lot of times it's
Right.
entrepreneurship. And the way we do that is really by working on that inner self, whether it's mindset, whether it's wealth consciousness, whether it's self-worth. So we really address it from the inside out because, well, in order to really, really align to everything in our life, we really have to focus on the inside first, right? So I
Right.
really facilitate that journey and have been doing this, well, really like as a business full time, not even a year. So
Which
a
is
little bit of
exciting.
background. Yes, it's so exciting, but a little bit of background on me. I was in a corporate world for over 25 years in the design sector, design industry. I started with graphic design and eventually ended up in user experience design. And yeah, there was a year of my life where I knew it was time to go, and I kept on putting it off,
It's like,
but
it's
think,
almost like life starts to become stale, right? Like that's the best
well,
way I can describe it, is like there's this stagnation, but like this crispy, stale energy in the air around, like when you're not shifting and you're not growing and you're just like in this weird loop.
yeah, I don't know. Like, you could look at it as stagnant, as in, like, I don't feel fulfilled anymore. And this just is Groundhog Day. Yes, where you're
Mm-hmm.
dreading the Mondays, where you're like, oh, is it Friday yet? Oh, shit, another meeting. Like, yes. But underneath it all, if you pay attention and are really plugged in and are really aware, you will also see um, the universe, God, whatever you believe, really starting to show you signs. So things, shit might be falling apart. You might be butting heads with your manager. You might be butting heads with something else. A project might fall apart, and they're just going to be kind of pushing you to go. And when you pay
Right.
attention to those signs, you understand, like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. This is upstream. This is not going with the flow, right? To
Right.
simplify it,
And
I
I
guess.
think, and I feel like it's so interesting because even when I pick up, like, I'm not on, I don't go on social media too frequently because I usually, like, my day is so packed, and then by the end of the day I'm so exhausted that I'm like, oh wait, I have to still go on there and show that I am still alive. Ha, hold on. And
Yeah.
so, like, and so I pull things up, and then it's like, it's interesting because there's so many people right now that are in that desperation for finding the change that they need in their life because what's going on is not fulfilling, and it's
Yeah.
distracting them from their true purpose. And there's so many people that are, it's like they're leaving major corporate jobs probably because corporations suck now, because they don't think about the individual human. They don't think about the life health of a person. Like, it's just
Yep.
like the pressures to hit goals and do everything and drive yourself, and it's like the constant, almost digging your grave. Or you get into the company that actually isn't that bad, but it's just a plain old same thing Monday through Friday. And it's like things aren't really progressing and going where they need to get to. But I've also noticed this huge uptick of people, professionals, and I want to use the term loosely, professionals, because it's like, because there's always popularity trends in companies, like where when
Mhm.
there's a need for, okay, everyone's realizing they want to make these changes, and then everyone decides, they take a course, they become an expert, and then they never really had some of the experience. They learn the lingo, they guide, but they never like really understand, or even sometimes because they may not have even done it themselves. It's just like, oh, this sounds like
Mhm.
fun. I really do want to. And the intent is good. The purpose in which they got into it is in the right place. But at the same time, they're still really kind of navigating through some of that themselves. And so I've noticed there's this huge uptick of people that are doing these massive job changes for the right reasons. But at the same time, some of the experience level isn't fully there yet.
Mhm.
Um, Now, that is not go to say that they're not going to be good at their job. It's like, because, you think about it, somebody's out there for everybody, right? Like, we have
Right.
to find the people we vibe with. We got to find people that are at the same frequency. And then, like, so even if they're fresh in their prime, they might be able to attract the really shy, timid person that isn't outspoken, or that like they'll hit the same vibe for them. So like there's people for everybody, but I'm noticing this huge uptick, and it's like, I want to talk about the shit. I want to talk about the crap that we go through, because I don't feel like, so everybody's like, ooh, mindset, yay. But no one's talking about the meat.
Mhm.
And we need to get to the meat of what's going on, because when it comes to our mentality, when it comes to our brain, that is where it's at. Like, that's like, our brain can fuck us up if we let it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
And so, I mean, and when you're dealing with people, you're getting, I mean, I know that when I meet with people, even for the first time, people cry. Like, not that I'm trying to like make them cry, but
Right.
like, this is just what happens. There's a release. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that you get the same type of thing
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's just complete purity of emotion coming, just raw emotion coming out. And it probably, and I'm assuming it probably happens almost like every session or close to it until they get to a certain point.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
it
No,
like,
I definitely agree with you there, because I mean, what ends up happening is most of the time you're bringing to the table something that they haven't heard before, right? They haven't heard this perspective. They haven't really thought about it. Even something as simple, and this is so important for individuals that feel like I have nothing to offer of value, or my clients, oh yeah, they already heard this shit, right? Like I know it, like they know it, but like I always have to remind myself, because even so something as simple, and I remember I just said that recently to a client, it was the idea of it's not happening to me, it's happening for me, right? That's just getting out of your victim mentality and taking accountability. And for her, it was just like so profound. It was
right.
so profound because she just never thought about it in that way. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it's important also to have a mentor and a coach and work with someone that is going to help to lead you to see a different perspective, to
Yeah.
start to reprogram, like you're saying. You know, people are talking about these things at a high level, but like really what's inside, like what's the shit?
Before we dive in, I want to encourage all of you to head over to capitalhealth.com. That's Kapitol health.com, and check out the Capital Health shop. We have all kinds of goodies to tickle anyone's fancy. We have oils to address any ailment issues. We even have gift cards, but more importantly, we have Capital Health swagwear. If you are looking for that shirt that has motivation like be stronger than your excuses, or if you're looking to bring a smile to someone's face with a shirt that says run like your kids are looking for you, go check out the Capital Health shop today. This episode of The Kapitol Life is brought to you by Fredshots Photography. If any of you have looked at my website, it is like a Fredshots gallery. This man has this masterful skill in bringing your soul through your headshot. It not only gives you a uniqueness to your headshot, but it also shows your personality in that instantaneous moment. But he doesn't just do headshots. He gets those magically milestone moments of your life through wedding celebrations, graduations, even opening up your own business and videography. You name it, he does it. So go check out fredshots.com. Please like, share, and rate us on whatever platform you're listening. It's how we start to really spread the message of good in the world that needs it so much right now.
Right. Well, and there's so many things that we go through. I mean, like, a lot of people don't realize with my bubbly personality and how I put myself out there, but it's like I'm blunt, I'm bold, I'm straight to the point. I don't do it in a like cutthroat kind of way, although sometimes if I'm going from one thing to the next, I'll be like, yeah, like yeah. quick. But it's like it's interesting. Some of that's because of my upbringing, and some of that's because a lot of it was my survivor skills, right? Like I think through on a strategic level on every like factor that possibly could happen. And some people might look at that as like overthinking or overstressing, and it's like, no, if anything, it was like that was my survival mode. My brain naturally did that because it was like, okay, these are the possible variables that could happen. And a lot of that was because, I was born to a freaking narcissistic sociopath or father. And then on top of it, like my mom was bipolar, but the bad, like bipolar, when bipolar wasn't even talked about in the 80s, like where it was like psych wards, institution, electric shock, like that type of thing. And it was like, and then putting them on massive medications to which they didn't really know what the long-term side effects are. And so, and it's like here, I had one good side of the family and I had one kind of bad side of the family. That's what I was raised to understand. And then later in my years, unraveling some of the history of my father's side, actually, I found like second cousins and other people that had same mannerisms as me, same personality types as me, where I always thought that to be bad and negative because it came from that side. And then what ended up happening is, sure as shit, there's all these freaking amazing people on the other side. They were just hidden from us because they had to be. Like because that's how it was for my grandmother. My grandmother totally created this psycho as a father of mine, and literally in doing that blockaded their whole family, almost forbid like us having connection to our other side, like to that other side. And then they're freaking wicked awesome people. And I was like, wait a second, but it was like I had to learn that what made me who I was not bad. It was not negative. It was not, like you are not what you came from. You have choices, you have value. And so it was very, let's just say, like, even entering into my 40s, I'm still dealing with some of the mental floss aspect because, let's just fucking be real. Like, that shit doesn't go away. Sometimes it's a daily offense that you have to constantly work through. And I know you have had an astronomical amount of issues that you've had to go through in your childhood. And I'd love for you to share a little bit with that, because you're so willing to share and be open. But I think that's what the point is in order to get to the nitty gritty, we have to show examples of being open and talking about the real crap, because that's how we get healed. And that's how we actually start getting to our purpose.
100%. And I'd love to share, but first of all, that's amazing, that you went on this journey and you discovered this about yourself, because so many people, once again, are out there thinking there's something wrong with them. But for you, this was a survival skill. And for your family members, the same thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And once you discover that, then you do something with that. Then you figure out, okay, how do I
now just a wicked genius in business.
Yeah, see, like
I think ahead so far. Yeah, that was a superpower.
Yeah, and for me, I went on this huge, long ass journey really after my divorce, which obviously a big life change, life event. And I started to really dig into my identity. Who am I? Who am I really? Like, what has happened in my life to really form the fabric of this, right? What really happened under
so much wrapped up into other people. And so then sometimes it's really hard to differentiate between, I can never say that word. It's always it's my hardest word. I should stop saying it. Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. Like there's some days I can get it, but I have to slow it down, kind of like your last name, except I don't have a fun wave for it. But it's like you get so wrapped up into someone else's identity and who you are with that person that sometimes it's almost like it's too much of a crossover. And sometimes you have to kind of reel back and be like, no, actually, how much is me? How much is influenced by someone else? And really get down to the anchorage to who you are.
Yeah. So like I actually went all the way back to when I was born, my early years, and started to really investigate my patterns when it came to men, masculinity. Obviously, for me, it was my father. He was the first male in my life. Therefore, a lot of the patterning and programming that was within me from that early age was based on his interaction with my mom, with me, with us as a family, which a lot of them, unfortunately, were negative because my father was an alcoholic. So I grew up, as much as he was great when he wasn't drinking and he loved me and he played with me. So there was this like duality of men are not safe versus, I could lean on them because I could ask my dad to fix my bike or whatever. And he would be there. He would do that. He would play volleyball with me or whatever. Right. So it was this duality of like, men are not safe. Men will let you down. So like I went down, which then obviously connects to my marriage. If we fast forward, and the males and partners that I choose were really based on this. And so I started to identify these core events in my life. And I really wanted to investigate where self-worth and self-love came in, because there's a point in my life, there was a huge shift, and this will be an obvious shift once I say it, but there was a huge shift, and this was in high school, where like my life really fell apart. And what I mean by that is I was 16 years old. So I wasn't thinking about events that were happening in my life, but literally what was happening in front of my face. So like my boyfriend, my friends, right? Like most kids.
Right. Because your brain's like, I always say you're having a half brain when you're in high school. Like your hormones are busy developing. So you function on a half brain. So you can really only process what's in the now. what's in the now
Exactly.
and your daily and in the
Yeah.
moment. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So like my boyfriend and I, uh, well, he cheated on me. We broke up, like, high school stuff, right?
right.
But what had happened prior to that, I was 16. It was February of 1993. My father attempted first to kill me and my mom with a butcher knife. And this is deep, so I should have maybe gave you a heads up and warning for the listeners, because I'm talking about this very openly because
But this is what
um
we're doing. This is what needs to be done. It
yeah,
needs to be said. And you know what? I'm
yeah,
not going to put like a censor advisory on it because life is real. And
yep,
the thing is that shit gets real, real quick. And there's a level of it's interesting. It's kind of like there's a level going out there where people aren't talking about stuff as clearly as they could and should. And because of
mm,
that, now we've got teens that are can't figure shit out or they're lost. And it's like when you put a life and death situation right in front of somebody, you don't have time to complain about half the crap that everyone's complaining about anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's not important. And it's not,
right.
it's just filler, it's filler drama. And it's like, okay, we're done with this. And so I think like I'm not saying that people should approach like life with a life and death mentality, but it's like put in proper perspective of priority and what happens. Cause it's like when that shit gets going, I mean, that stuff is raw. Like it's raw and and like there's this weirdness. I don't know if this happened with you, but when that happened with your dad, like I remember when my dad actually tried to strangle me in the back of a Kmart alley. And it was really interesting. It was like my brain froze and did like automatic reaction. Like I did, it was almost like I didn't have to think, I just did.
Oh
And
yeah.
then there was no processing, there was no emotion in it. It was
No.
straight just put into action, like
Survival.
survival of
Yeah,
the fittest right
yeah,
away. And it
yeah.
was like, and if it wasn't for me, my voice saved me. My voice is what saved me. And I've always struggled with my voice and being able to see how far I can project and how far I can speak. And what I'm finding is that even when I do speak, my daughter even says to me sometimes, like, I hear what you're saying. I heard everything and everything made it in here. But like I became hypnotic. Like something about your voice is hypnotizing. And like,
Hmm.
then after she said that to me, I actually, when I start doing speaking engagements and things of that nature, it was funny because then I realized half the audience was in a trance when they were listening. They were nodding, like as if I was like one of those cobra snakes, like doing the dance. And they were
Yeah.
like, they're like, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. And I didn't realize that my voice was it wasn't just what saved me, it also was my purpose. And I've always had to
Hmm.
struggle a lot about my throat chakra and how much of being heard or being seen or being able to speak and what my value was with it. And then when I
Hmm.
came to and it was so interesting because that is exactly what saved me that day, was because when that moment came, just the pitch of my voice broke him out of his psychosis or whatever trance
Yeah.
he was in, trying to do what he was trying to do, and it woke him up and he stopped. And it was like,
Wow.
if he did it, God knows what would have happened. I think I was 10. Like, I mean, that was
Wow.
right. So, like, I mean, like, but you know what it's like when that happens, like when he's chasing you around, you're like, you go blank and your body goes straight into just do.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah.
very weird, weird moment.
Yeah, like you said, it's just pure reaction, right? You go into survival
Right.
mode. And like with my dad, it was my mom was staying with me in my room because they had got into an argument. He was a little bit too aggressive, so she came and stayed in my
Just
room.
safer. It's the safe
Yes.
place. Like, hey,
Yeah.
one, I need to protect my kid, and two, I need to make sure I don't die because I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yeah, so like we were laying down to go to bed, and I'm laying down and I hear my dad open the drawer. I know exactly which drawer. I just like, I knew, you know what I'm saying? I just
Yeah,
knew.
there's sound. It's like your memory hears the sounds and you know
Yes.
exactly where they are. I knew exactly where the creaks were in the hallway so that
Yes.
I could walk the hallway without my father hearing that I had left my
Yes.
room, just so I could go to the bathroom in peace and not like be disturbed. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't anything bad. It was literally like you learned how to be able to walk a certain way or where the creaks of the floors were so that
Think about that though. You learned to tiptoe around the person that you had to tiptoe your entire life to some extent,
exactly.
right? And you continue to like, it extends to such to things like this. I too knew the creaks in our floors. And when he opened that drawer, I knew exactly what knife he was pulling out. Like I could hear it in my head. I mean, he was downstairs. I was upstairs. My room's upstairs. And then yes, as he was walking, the creaks, I'm like, oh, he's there. Oh, he's on a second step of the stairs. He's in the third step. Mom, mom. Oh, it's fine,
Right.
honey. It's fine, right? Like, and then finally, boom, this is where the survival, mode kicked in, where it was like bolt for the door, put your back against the door. He's trying to jab the knife in the door. I'm holding it. My mom doesn't know what the fuck to do. And I'm putting my foot against the dresser. There was this huge dresser that I had, thank God. And landline, phone, calling 911 at the same time. And
Wow.
then he retreated, right? He retreated and they arrested him. He was drunk. He was intoxicated. So that led up, that experience led up to him taking his own life 5 days later. So he committed suicide in our house. My sister had found him, and obviously huge traumatic event. But I remember he hung himself in our laundry room, which was in the
Mm.
basement. So I remember running down there after my sister had found him and looking and seeing at his body. His body had sagged to the floor already because he was hanging there overnight, because I believe I actually heard the stool fall the night before. It was like a 10:20, 10:30 at night. I heard it
But
through
how
like
are you to know what was going
I
on? Like,
right,
yeah,
had no idea, but I remember
right.
specifically hearing this noise through the vents and being like, "Oh, maybe that's my sister downstairs." And then I asked my sister later and her boyfriend, which stayed over the night, were you guys down there at 10:30? And they're like, no, we weren't. So then I was like, oh, like that was dad doing something in the basement and perhaps this is what happened. But I remember this thought of like standing him, watching him, his body sagged, and thinking this morbid thought of, uh, if you were breathing right now, I don't know if I could even go and save you, because there was so much fear and anxiety that I had lived with, without even thinking about it.
Right.
That this thought was like, I don't know if I could have saved you, because I would have been so scared. And you know so it was crazy. It was a crazy experience that I didn't really investigate until I was a grown ass woman, until I was a full grown ass woman, and really when I was heading into my 40s, when I started to look at that. And what really cute, what really I started to discover is, when you think about self-worth, right? Loving yourself, and really seeing yourself as the prize, as I like to say. You are the prize, right? You take everybody off of that pedestal. You're the only one that belongs on that pedestal, not because you're better than anyone, but because you are fucking amazing, right?
Right.
And for us to see
Absolutely.
ourselves, yeah, and for us to see ourselves that way, you know, it takes a certain perspective and a certain knowing. And what I didn't see until years later was how much the events that transpired that week with my dad, specifically him attacking me and my mom, or attempting to attack me and my mom, how much they impacted that. Because really the way I ended up interpreting that subconsciously was, okay, this man, this person that I looked up to, that I felt safe with, even though unsafe at times, this person thinks so little of me and who I am and my life that he was willing to take my life. Therefore, that means that I'm worthless. I'm worth nothing. And then as I started to uncover that from that moment on and really look at what was reflected in my 3D reality post that event, this is where everything started to fall apart. So like if we think about, I like to think about our inner being, our inner self, and how we really view ourselves, as our 3D is reflecting that which we are on the inside. It's called self-concept. That's I truly believe in self-concept. So if you are feeling worthless, like nothing, just zero on the inside, the events in your 3D world around you will reflect that. So this will be reflected
You're
in
going to
ways that
attract those types of people. You're going to attract those types of
they're going to show
friendships. You're going to
you.
attract that type
Yes.
of job, everything. Like you are
Yes.
what you magnetize.
Yes.
And
So if
what I find fascinating is like I could only imagine what that did for your mentality and how you looked at your self-worth, because it was, hey, I'm worth this here, and oh, I'm not important enough for him to even fight for me. You know, like there's
yeah.
that mentality where when I
Yes.
hear this story and like I can see it as, holy crap, your father got to the point where he was so afraid of what he would do to the people he loved most that the safest thing for him to do was take himself out.
Yeah. My dad talked about suicide all his life,
Yeah.
which is,
And the weird part is that you almost get accustomed to hearing about it, that it no longer, that you don't even know where the validity of it is. Like you don't
yeah.
know the potency to how strong it is in the person's head, because it's almost like it became normalized conversation. And
And it
so,
wasn't so much that he exposed it to us. It was my mom that then later
yeah,
told me, like, oh, yeah, your dad talked about suicide. He talked about killing me all the time and himself.
that's
So,
crazy. If you find this helpful or insightful, don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and YouTube at Kapitol Health. That's Kapitol Health. Also, visit us at capitalhealth.com and subscribe to our newsletter and get wicked awesome updates.
yeah, so it was really crazy. And really going back to that, like once I really took on that, once I thought about myself in those ways where I'm basically worth nothing, my life fell apart, right? Like from the perspective of my relationship with my boyfriend, which we had a great relationship as young kids, right? Like,
Right,
but we had a
right.
great relationship. We were
But
friends.
he
To
still
then,
was cheat, like he would cheat on you,
so
and so therefore that
he
would mess
cheated
with your
on me.
self-worth. Right.
Yeah, which is
Which
like if
again
I'm not
repeats the same thing. I'm not worthy,
I'm
like
not
I'm
worthy.
not
Therefore,
important enough.
what is he going to reflect to me? You're not worthy. What is my friend going to reflect to me? You're not worthy. It's like when we get ghosted, or when our friend doesn't keep a promise. Well, why are you not keeping promises to yourself? Because that's what your friend is really showing you. It's showing you a mirror, right?
Right.
So like going through all of that, even basketball. So I was a huge athlete, and just an example too, I was a huge athlete in high school, and basketball was my sport. So I was a senior. So this like it happened towards junior year.
Yeah, I
And
was
now
gonna say, I
as
was
I
like,
was
that's junior year, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, as I was entering my senior year and our first
I mean, so
basketball
much
game
of
was
our identity is created in those years. 16,
yes.
17, 18, 19. Like for a young woman starting to discover who they are as a person, and then you're
Yes.
going through having completely like your roots pulled out from underneath you, and then
Yes.
having to go through that discovery without any roots.
Yes. Yes. And it's like I lost everything. I even lost basketball because I sustained a huge injury. Our first game, that wasn't even an official game. It was like a tournament. So it wasn't even like on the books game. I pulled a ligament in my knee. I was out for like 2 months. And then when I came
Ouch.
back, I had no confidence. Like it really reflected the way I felt on the inside.
Right.
So that meant like I stopped playing ball. Like I had scholarships lined up. I was going to play in college, and I just crumbled completely, you know? So it's like that event impacted my life in a huge way. Not surprising, right? But like in the ways that I wouldn't have thought of until as an adult, I went back to really investigate that. And then obviously this goes on into how it impacts my relationship with men, which then I saw my patterns and they were fucking the same, right? There was a constant thread of abandonment and betrayal in all of them in some shape or another. And
And
then it
they're
went
all
into my husband.
intricately woven together
Yes.
sometimes. A lot of people don't realize that when they address some of the abandonment issues, or they address some of the betrayal, or they address trust, or they address all these different things that are connected to our self-worth, what they don't realize is that they might have gotten a layer, but then sometimes they don't realize the entanglement that ends up
Yep.
being intertwined. And sometimes it's even just with all three of our self-worth and our betrayal and abandonment. Like, it's like they're all
Yes.
webbed together in this strange connection. And it's like, until you can really identify not only some of the relationships, but also like the life events, that's really
Yes.
what helps us get through it. And it's interesting because, like, we talk about the type of people that we attract, but it's also like we have this immense opportunity to release our traumas to which we've experienced. And sometimes, like, you'll notice how there's some people that we get around them and it's like oil and water, like it turns disastrous and the relationship is just bad. Well, that's because the trauma frequencies from each individual, that what they brought to the table, end up creating that misalignment between the two people. Where when you've got, my husband and I are almost like a perfect example of, like, he's gone through his abuse in his years. I've gone through mine, completely different types, completely different, different experiences, but at the same time, it still attaches that self-worth value, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the frequency of our trauma was almost an attraction so that we could come together. And then as we got into our safe relationship, all those issues start to unravel and give an opportunity to heal. Now, a lot of people don't get that. Sometimes it's, the self-discovery leads them to divorce because they're like, oh my gosh, I've been playing this character for my whole life, but it was influenced by those around me and I wasn't choosing to be myself, and it was like, and there's that heartbreak of, it's like, there's no misleading. It's just, it's self-discovery. And as we age, it's almost like it's easier to get to self-discovery a little bit more, but it's also harder because you have to go back into the past. And then it's like, man, like, I'm fucking tired. I'm tired, like life tired, because I've been through the mill. I've carried all myself all this way. And then I'm like, oh man, there's more. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
But there's like this freedom that comes with it now. Like, before, it was like, now I know how to do the work. I know how to go through and clear it. I know how to release myself of it. So it's not in my everyday, and it's not in my, it's not daunting over me. Like, what I attract are amazingly freaking cool people. And then I'm like, wow, these people are so fun, and then there's more entertainment. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's a reminder. Like, if I'm attracting those types of people, I'm attracting what's within me. Oh, okay, got you. Okay, stop thinking stupid.
Yeah, very exactly. And like this work, I mean, obviously, I think I wasn't equipped to do it when I was younger, right? Like, I just wasn't there.
I wasn't there yet. I mean, I had my intuition, and I had all of my gift. Like, I had a portion of my gifts that God had presented to me and that I was aware of, but like, I wasn't. It's kind of like when you get somebody a new toolkit, right? It's like they have to learn how to individually use each of the tools until they become the master at it. And it's like, and that's kind of how it is for us as kids. We get plopped into this physical world, or, earth school, like, hey, the goal of life, what's your purpose? Go. Like, and it's like, you get plopped in here, you get all these different skills, but you don't really know how to utilize them. And especially for kids like us, where it was like we were raised in an environment to where it was like we had these skills, but we didn't really know how to utilize them because the focus wasn't about us harnessing those gifts and expanding them, right? And so, sometimes when we, try to protect our kids, like my kids dancing in the background, playing with dogs, and could care less that this is live streaming and recording. And
Yeah.
we're probably going to get some kind of child pornography alarm, because he's in his shorts. But it's at the same time, it's like I harness his gifts, his abilities. I really focus on walking him through his emotions. Like if he gets upset about something, it's about, hold on, I want you to feel into those feelings. What is it that what prompted you to be upset? What was it that bothered you? Okay, let's navigate through this together. We didn't have a lot of that. Some of it has to do with the time to which we were born, but a lot of it, majority of it, had to do with our circumstances, because our emotions weren't valid at the time of when we weren't allowed to have our feelings be valid. We weren't given permission to be able to explore those. And if we did, it was easier for parents or people around to shush us, not because they were trying to suppress our emotion, but it was because they didn't know what else to do. And they also were trying to make sure that we weren't going to be in a dangerous situation.
Yeah. And they were dealing with their own shit that they didn't know what to do with,
Exactly.
So yeah, they couldn't. Yeah. Absolutely, and until this day, my mom still hasn't dealt with a lot of shit, and like I could see it now, emotionally. I could see it, and having emotional intelligence, like I do, versus where she's at. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I get it. I have to meet you where you're at, and really try to understand where you're coming from, and stuff like that. But she's,
which is really interesting, because there's some ways that my mom, like that time frame, there's some stuff that she hasn't really processed through. But then the really cool thing that I found is, as I've been on more of my self-discovery journey and my really diving into where my self-worth is held, what I found is it was like, okay, I had already released a lot of the stuff from my childhood years and years and years ago. And then, kind of had a hiccup with it, but more unraveling the deeper entanglement that it was in recent years. But the even more interesting thing is like, that's the stuff that's not the issue. It's the almost just the even the regular daily things that I've started realizing patterns of how I would react to something, or even having a false sense of like standards or belief systems. And I was like, oh, that actually is not that important to me. Why am I playing that road? Like, that's not a big deal. And so I started addressing like even the ancestral patterns that were in play, that we've gotten from one generation to the next, of like how we've done things just because we've done them that way. And then I was like, yeah, that doesn't need to be here anymore. Like, we don't need to do that. And so it was like, it always has to do with the pantry. Like, I swear, like my family does this weird thing where it's like, here's somebody coming down to look at something in the pantry, and they're like, oh, we ran out of bread, we must need bread. So then they put it on the list, and they're like, oh, what do you put? Send another person walks in, what are you putting on the list? Oh, we're putting bread. Really? I thought we had some. Then they go and check the pantry, and then so unfortunately, you can get to the 6th, 7th person that walks in the goddamn room. The first person was right the whole time. Just take their word for it. Stop questioning. Like, where's the trust, people? And so like I noticed this pattern, and I said to my mom, and I was like, we have to stop doing this. Like, we have to stop doing this. We can't keep cross-checking, because then that shows no trust in each other. And we are always each other's backing. And so as I started to notice some of these behavioral patterns, and just even intricate daily occurrences, I noticed she started actually diving and started connecting things to like her mom, or how she was taught to believe something. And then I will catch her and be like, hey, that's not a thing. Like, and then she looks and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work on that one, And so it's been amazing, because it's like in ways that I never thought she could come to a realization, because, she just hit 70. She's, it's, I don't want to say, hey mom, like, you can't teach old dogs new tricks or whatever, but it's not true. It's that's a story. That's bullshit. And we've been saying it because it's easy. And the fact is that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can get where you need to be, period. It just takes a solid choice and awareness.
Yes, 100%, 100%. You know, with my mom, I think what for me, what makes it more challenging is the language barrier. So my mom is a
Yeah.
complete Polish speak. Polish is her first language. Um, her English is bare minimum. Therefore, for me to like dive into anything deeper, I really would have to put on my Polish brain and you know communicate this in Polish, which ain't gonna happen.
Which that's a
Not that I
different
don't know how to.
cultural, that also plays, it's not just a language, there's a culture with
Yes.
every language.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
that's
she straight
hard.
out, but she straight out will say it. She's like, I'm not interested in going down the rabbit hole. Like, I'm tired. She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to bring up the past, you know, like it's happened. You know, my sister will tell me. I have an older sister, so she's like the translator sometimes in between when like my mom will
Mhm.
I'll say something and it'll trigger my mom, but then she won't tell me. And then she'll tell my sister that she hasn't been sleeping because Margaret said this. And I'm like, what? I thought we had a great conversation. And meanwhile, my mom's like freaking out, you know? And so it's just interesting how she just does
Well,
not
and the
want
way I
to.
go with that is what's waking you up. Like,
Yeah.
that's I mean, clearly something where, when we
Oh,
get triggered like that, that's our opportunity it raises to the surface for clearing.
and yeah, my mom's like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah. And then you know what? And that's her choice. Like my mom is very much like, I always call her an observer. Like her job at Earth School is to observe and just
Mm,
and witness and in a way just be a listening support. Like
yeah.
she
I'm
like
a
that's
little bit
just
like that.
yeah. And
I
that's
get it.
just been like how she is. And like, like she says to me regularly, sometimes it's hard to understand you. You use different words that I don't use. And I just think it's so cute that she says it that way because it's like, it's true. Like when we're having conversations, some people may not understand like frequencies and alignment or third dimension versus sixth dimension. But like, but there's a verbiage that's becoming more, I don't know how you'd say, but it's
Common.
becoming more it's expanding, right? Where we're
Yeah.
going through an
Mhm.
expansive motion in our universe right now. And it's funny because like she just will be like, yeah, I don't think I understand what that meant, and then can you explain that to me, and then I'll go into a different thing, and then she'll connect it to how she connects things. Like it might be part of her like AA learnings, or it might be part of her other stuff, but it's just
Yeah.
like she will like, and she was a therapist for years, like a very successful one.
Wow.
Yeah, so she
That's
was like drug
cool.
rehab specialist in Chicago for like tons of years. Like wrote a ton of the kids. What is it? Like rehab facility, like inpatient, outpatient. Like
Yeah.
she did all the things. She had all the connections, all the things. Like I would have kids that would be like stalking me in hallways because they were like in her program, and like I would be in a locker, and then I would notice like you know how it is when someone's watching you
Yes.
and someone's watching you and you're kind of like, and then you can sense it. And so I would
Yes.
be like, and it would have like this cloud of a person following me for like a week, and like it's just random times, and then I'd like turn around and I just kind of keep going about myself. And basically what they were doing is they were following me until they got the courage to come up and talk to me. And then of course after that they would come up and be like, oh my gosh, are you Suzanne's daughter? And I'm like, yes, I am. And then I'm like, oh, because
Oh.
they're okay. Like, and then I'm just like, yes, I am. Hi, it's nice to meet you. Like, do you want a
Yeah. How can I
picture?
help
Like,
you?
what? And then it was so funny because I had this one chick, oh my God, it was like probably sophomore junior year, somewhere in the sophomore junior year time, because I don't know if I was driving yet, but it was hilarious because like I'm walking in the hallway, it's passing period, you know how it's crowded as hell, like you've got
Yeah.
5 minutes
Oh,
to
yeah.
bust through, and there's this shuttle of herded people going through the thing, and I'm in the middle of this herd up the stairs where nobody can, like, I don't
What
know
high
how
school did you
anybody
go
didn't.
to?
Well, it was at Libertyville High School. It's
Okay.
in the Chicago area.
Yep.
And
Yep. I
like,
know.
yeah. And so, well, it's so funny because like there's this one hallway where you just got compacted in, and I still don't understand how no one died. Like, like people would trip and fall or get stomped on. Like, I mean, you think of massive stampede of a high school hallway. That one hallway is insane. And all of a sudden, an old friend of mine from like 6th, 7th grade that I didn't really see anymore just because our lives like split and went in different
Yep.
directions. And she just comes out of the hallway and she just starts screaming at me and is like, I can't fucking stand you and your mom and da 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 da. Like she's just screaming at me. And I'm like, dude, how are you? I have not seen you in like 4 years. And she just looked at me and froze and was like, what? And I was just like, wait, you were yelling about my mom. I was like, are you in treatment? Like, she just looked at me. She's like, don't act like you don't know. And I was like, sweetie, it's anonymous. Like
Yeah.
there, like, I don't know a damn thing. Like, and then she just froze, turned around and walked the other direction. And I was like, what the fuck just
Oh,
happened?
yeah.
And so then I get picked up from school. So I must have been 15. And so I must have been sophomore year. So then I go and I get picked up from my mom and I get in the car and I'm like, so and so's in treatment, huh? And she just looked at me and was like, ah, shit. Like, just
Yeah.
like, and I was like,
Right
okay,
away.
right, exactly. But it was hilarious because, it was a very different experience because like as a kid, it was like, here are these kids that she's helping, families and trying to help them through all of this stuff. But at the same time, there wasn't a lot of that conversation between like child and parent. Like,
Yeah.
like there was it was like I could overhear things. And so I learned and picked up like healthy processing. But at the same time, I still was struggling with my own stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, it would come out in different ways. And it was like, a lot of my family had that, hey, you broke free of your dad, so now you're okay and everything's fine. And it was like,
Yeah.
but this is still got a
Right.
lot in there.
And this is where everything is.
Right. Like this is like I
Yeah.
yeah. And then it was like, okay, go figure that out. And it was, and I think it takes time. It does take time, one, for people to start feeling like they're in a safe place. But even more
Mm-hmm.
so, it's also the strength and the ability to really figure out what the hell's going on. Like when my kids were born, they would be just playing as kids. I didn't know what healthy and normal looked like
Right.
because I
Right.
wasn't raised in that. So I would have
No.
to regularly look at my mom and say, is that okay? And then she's like, they're playing. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So I had
Okay.
to, like, in my newness of being a parent, I had to figure out what that looked like for my family and for my kids. And it was rewriting because I had nothing to go off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're coming from a dysfunctional family, not knowing that you're dysfunctional. Like I remember
Right.
when that term was brought up to me, and I was like, "Oh, my family's dysfunctional. Like that shit's not normal."
Everybody's family is dysfunctional. Like, we just used to be normalized. Everyone that's listening, everybody's family's fucked up. Just get it through your head. It's okay. We're here and we're alive and it's fine.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the one thing I do want to mention, because we're talking about self-worth and self-love and maybe some ways of how to start to dig into that. But I think an important factor, which we've mentioned several times, is the mind, right? And when you really think about like scientifically the simple facts of thoughts and how many thoughts we have per day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the number is upwards of, it's up to 70,000 thoughts a day that we have.
Yes.
And like out of that, 95% of those are repetitive. They're the same thought. And out of that 95%, 80 are negative. So if you don't learn to actually stop and think and like catch your thoughts, you are an autopilot creating a negative life without even knowing it. I catch myself all the time where like one little seed of a negative thought will just pop into my head automatically, and then before you know it, I've gone off and I've created this fucking negative story, and I'm like, what are you doing? Bring it back in, girl. Bring it back in. Nope, that is not real, right? Like how
Right.
often are we doing that? Because that also impacts how you're going to view yourself, how you're going to treat
Well,
yourself.
and it's even like it's so much of like we do that in our day to day, even just like us getting dressed, right? It's
Mhm.
like, like getting dressed and it's like, like what your makeup looks like or where your hair's doing or what outfits are you going to end up like, how do I'm looking in this outfit? Or, it's like, I mean, everybody goes through this on a day by day basis. I mean, even like when kids are getting ready, it's like they like to make their hair present, like they get their hair
Yeah.
done the way that they like, or they put the earrings on, they put that inflection. But what we don't do is that when we're having like God, this, like, it's like, it was like, oh my gosh, my stomach doesn't look so great. Instead of saying, thank you, stomach, for nourishing my body and giving me all
Right.
of what I need. Like, you've been there for me. I appreciate you. Or,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we don't put that kindness. And it's like, some of the times I really encourage people to say, okay, for every negative thought that comes in, don't just slide and delete, like, do an autocorrect, like
Mm-hmm.
flip it. Take that
Yes.
negative thing and then reverse and say something positive, but say it out loud. Say it to yourself in the mirror. Be the crazy one that talks to themselves in public like I
Yep.
do.
Yes. 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 That's
Yeah. But it's
excellent.
just
That's excellent.
it's so much on having to address these things as they come through, because the longer that we go not addressing them, the harder it is. Like, the harder it is to really, almost become so emotionally detached that there is no self-awareness. And then you're
Yeah.
stuck in this cycle and you don't know how to break free of it. And then you just determine, I'm not happy.
Yeah. And you don't know why.
Right.
Right. Right. It's, there's another thing that happened to me, and it's more to do with the ability to receive, which also is tied to self-worth and self-love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you don't allow yourself to receive, start investing. If you're having a hard time with a compliment, if someone says you look beautiful, you look nice or whatever, and you're like, oh no, oh, this whole thing, start investigating,
Right. Why
you
can't you
know,
receive that?
why can't you receive that? And I've done work on this, and what I noticed is this past holiday season my neighbor gifted me an iPad. And originally she was getting it from me, and I was going to purchase it from her because she got from work, it was a refurbished iPad, whatever, right? She asked if I was like, yeah, totally. But then she's like, I want to gift it to you, right? And it was funny because like I was I was like, thank you. Yes, thank you. Right. I was so grateful, and like that she thought of me in that way because whatever. Right. But I've learned to observe the thought after the initial thought. So although I was like, thank you, I receive it. Right. Like, this is amazing. I feel so honored and cherished. The thought after that was, oh shit, now I got to buy her something because she gave me this, which is a programming, which is what I was used to from before, right? Tit for tat. You give me something, oh, that means I got to give you something back. So I was like, oh, Margaret, like, we got a little more work to do. So it's a constant of being aware, and I like to untangle the spaghetti like that. To me, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. Our mind is fascinating, like this whole journey. Um, but it takes time, and it takes being kind to yourself.
Completely. Kindness is such a need. It's, I say everything always happens, in perfect grace and perfect timing, but we have to give ourselves the patience and the grace to just be, like,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we don't do that. We forget about the self-care that we have to put towards ourselves. And sometimes it is just laying low and taking a nap and not feeling guilty for doing nothing, because our
Yeah.
body just
Oh,
needed rest, and call it a day.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I always, I mean, I'm a firm believer that, we're creating our reality. We're manifesting all day, every day, right? Like, that's the life I live. And what always has given me solace, is the idea of, well, we can't fuck it up, right? We can't fuck it up. The universe, God always has our back. And in the example of the navigating system, right? Navigation system, your coordinates are entered in. I'm going to Chicago from Nashville. And that's all you care about. And the navigation system is going to pinpoint the ways for you. And even if you take the wrong turn, it is going to reroute you always to where you're needing to go. And where you're
Yeah.
needing to go is where you as a being have said you want to go, right? So like, there's no wrong path is the point
Right.
here. You're always taken care of. And there's so much peace in that when you like start to like really get that, like, there's peace in that.
Yeah, I started saying, I had a saying that came up a couple of years ago that just like a download that came through, and I started saying it to people, and it was like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be in this place and time at this exact moment, exactly as you are.
Yep.
And it was like, it came through to me because I realized I needed an allowance to exist as I was in my current state, no matter what state that was in.
Yeah.
And it like removed the anxiety, it removed the frustrations, it removed it became emotionless and just allowed myself to be. And then I found like that, and then it worked out really great because then I started repeating it. Like, so if someone was running late, like I'd just say, hey, it's okay, you're exactly where you need to be in this place and time at this exact moment.
Yes.
And then they were like, ooh, I like that. And then I'd start getting all this responses from it. And it just made like such an amazing difference. Well, I mean, you have been absolutely incredible. I love everything that we talked about. How can people find you? I know you're all on social media. Like, I mean, there shouldn't be a difficult way to find you.
So the best way will be either, well, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And
okay. See, and I'm just asking for your preferred stockage. Like,
yeah.
So like people randomly stalking me. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. So I would say the dominant one will be Instagram, and my handle is the Margaret Kujawa on Instagram. From there, you'll be able to connect to every other one. So that's the easiest route to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the Kapitol Life. I so cherish you and our time together, and I can't wait to like do a revamp of this, maybe like next season. Like, and have you back on the show. So I think I think it's really good. We can get even more nitty gritty.
Yes, and thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Yes, I can talk about this stuff all day long because it's so fascinating. You know, I don't know.
I do too. I was like looking at the time and I'm like, yeah, I can skip the next thing, right? I was like, oh, maybe not. Okay.
But yes, thank you for having me, and I really love you and appreciate you and what you do.
Appreciate you. You've been amazing. Thanks for joining me on the Kapitol Life, where we talk about all the things. Join me next Saturday where we talk kind and generous.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube and Facebook at Kapitol Health. That's Kapitol Health. Please share with your friends and family. The Kapitol Life is available on all podcasting platforms except Pandora. Our goal at the Kapitol Life is to provide a safe place to get information when it comes to your health and wellness, especially when dealing with all of life's phases. Remember to take care of yourself because you're somebody's everything.